Live.
It's been like a month since we've been on here.
I know, it's been busy.
It has.
It's a good busy. Not an excuse, but reality.
That is your new pet peeve, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
I'm busy.
Being busy is not an excuse, but it's reality.
I think everyone's busy this time of year, though.
Yeah.
One's busy is something totally different as someone else.
We're in a new setting today. We are not in, this is our second office. It's our second office.
What is?
Where we are right now.
Oh, I love it out here. It's beautiful.
Well, and it's like, our second office is usually real estate that we have listed or listing, and so this
I
is
thought
kind
you
of
were
a
talking
special
about
place.
the car.
Oh, no. No.
That's kind of like the third
Talk about
office.
where we're standing. We're going to talk about something really fun today that can be a little bit controversial,
Yeah.
but we've had a lot of experiences with it recently, and we thought that it would be a good time to talk about it.
Can we just tell people where we are?
Let's tell them where we are.
I feel like we should give the address. So this is one of our nice listings that we have right now. We are at 9840 Southwest Frontage Road. It's about 45 acres.
Yep. We're literally right off of I-70. If you go west of Auburn, there's an exit for frontage if you're heading eastbound. If you're westbound, you can still see it off to the north. Kind of a neat property.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Blacksmith River, which is actually in our background, and they've been catching 40 and 50-pound flatheads out of this, and bullheads. And then on the other side of the property is Mission Creek, and then on the far north side is the Kansas River. So I grew up hunting just to the east of here, the property that butts up to it, and you know, it's deer, it's turkey, dove, duck, goose, awesome fishing, mushroom hunting, and then also there's open acreage for like equestrian. A lot of people raise horses around here, and then we've seen the
And
farm
it's very
tractors come
private.
in.
You have your own private entrance right off of I-70. You have quarter-mile drive. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just very private. Lots of greenery. You know, you are by the highway, so you do get a little bit of noise, but a lot of the trees and stuff like that kind of help divert that noise too. So
The house sits up
Easy
on top
access.
of a hill, and one of the neighbors said it's actually the 4th highest elevation in Shawnee County, if you're up at where the house is. So, anyways, we just listed this property for $399. We've got a drone video that we're going to release, and thought it'd be a little bit different to do an off-site.
yeah, we wanted to, it's so beautiful out. We
Yeah.
wanted to get out of the office. We were both standing outside at our office in the parking lot, and we were like, let's just go somewhere.
So, today we're going to talk about for sale by owners.
We like to call them FSBOs.
Yeah, so if you ever hear the term from an agent, a FSBO,
Sometimes we forget that people don't realize what that means, and we say it a lot, but
some of our acronyms can be different. Most people would assume that because we make our living selling real estate, we are these huge, you're wrong if you try to FSBO.
or that we get defensive when you don't use us.
Yeah, that's not the case at all. We do follow the facts. And the national average today, so, you know, even with Zillow and ForSaleByOwner.com and all these things, the national average today is lower, and the trend has continued to get lower of the people that successfully for sale by owner without an agent involved at all. I think it's like 3.3% now
Successfully closed.
in the nation. And we're going to talk about why, because I think sometimes we handle things and maybe don't say what we do all day.
Yeah, we don't educate our consumers very well with what we do day in and day out. I think a lot of times people think we just drive around and show houses. We open doors, and there's a lot more to it that we do that is hidden kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah. So this is going to be a little bit educational. We are not here to tell you you are wrong for trying to for sale by owner. Our family's huge, my family, and I did successfully do it. And the reason I did is I knew a lot of my families and friends had been to my house before, so I put on Facebook, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house. The agent's coming next week. If you know anyone that might be interested before I list it, contact me. Completely harmless, nothing wrong. I knew what I paid for the house, and I didn't think it was worth a lot more than I had just paid for it. But we're going to talk about some of the trips or frustrations, difficulties that can come up.
The hurdles.
Yeah, hurdles that
Yeah.
people don't know about. And we I joke a lot and tell people, oh, I'm a glorified door opener, or I'm a facilitator, but I'm on my phone all day long. You can ask my wife and kids. They're always...
Well, we're like an hour and a half late doing this.
Right. Because I've been on the phone. Kelly's been watching me on the phone the whole time.
I'm like, I could be doing something.
Right.
Instead.
So, first off, if you've been successful selling your house, tell us what you liked about it.
Yeah.
And tell us if you had any hurdles, if you've done it on your own. And let's go make sure that we're clear. Just because you hire agents doesn't mean there won't be hurdles too.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been hired and we've had a couple of appraisals here lately come back low. And so we're having to go through those hurdles right along someone that's doing a for sale by owner.
We'll start with the very first thing that most for sale by owners will struggle with in the very beginning. And I'm gonna say that that's price.
Price. I agree. You know, you get on Zillow and you see your Zestimate, you know, is this price, and I mean, those people have never been to your home. They're grabbing that estimate or the Zestimate off of an algorithm offline of what's sold kind of around you. Maybe they might know the appreciation. You know, in Topeka, subdivisions, they appreciate different. And there's absolutely no way that they're going to know exactly what that Zestimate is. And even the owner of Zillow himself ended up selling his house for 40% less than what his estimate was.
So there's two things that you need to know about price. We can all agree that a house is worth so much to us. What would it cost to rebuild it? So, and appraisers take that information into play. What would it cost to rebuild this home, and what have these people put into the home that make it so nice? But there's another part of the equation, and that part of the equation is, what is someone willing to pay for it? And that's where appraiser's real job is, and that's where the true facts come in. What is someone willing to pay for it? And they get that data by pulling close homes. So they have to go closest to furthest.
Yep.
So what homes, starting at the closest, going furthest, sold that are like your home in the last 6 months? Now, if there aren't any within a half a mile or a mile, then they'll go a little farther.
Yeah.
If there aren't any within 6 months, they may go to 12 months.
You know, they look at bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage first, and then they look at updates. You know, because we can subtract and add for updates. However, another hurdle that homeowners get to is, well, I've put $30,000 into this house, so it must be worth $30,000 more.
Yep.
It's not always the case. It just depends on what it was that you updated, or if it was a cosmetic or a maintenance issue that you updated.
The other
putting a new roof on it, you might spend $10,000 putting a new roof on your house. You cannot add $10,000 to your price. That's a maintenance issue.
Another thing that people will comment about is the Zestimate. Zillow doesn't know the difference between Prairie Trace.
Murray, yeah, you have. Sorry.
What?
Murray said he's done it 3 times, but he's had a lot of different experiences.
So if you live across the street from Clarion Woods, Zillow doesn't know the difference. That there's $170,000 homes and there's $400,000 homes across the street. So a house may sell over there, and it's still this algorithm. How do you say that word?
Algorithm.
Algorithm. That's a big one. But anyways, they don't know the true dynamics of Topeka or Rossville or Silver Lake. They don't know the school districts. You know, most people that contact us shop by school district.
I would say that's probably the number one first criteria, other than what they need in a house. The first criteria is school district.
So I'm talking about a lot of facts, but let me give you an example of one that just happened. Last year, these buyers contacted me and they said, Joe, we found a house that we really, really like. The seller said they're not willing to pay an agent based on the price they're asking for it. They paid $150 for it. They spent $20,000 with Topeka Landscape in the backyard. They put some new floorings in, and they'll sell it to us for $170. And I've always said, I don't care if I show you 1 home or 20 homes. If I don't find you the home you want to buy, I don't want to be the reason that you don't get the home. So I'm okay with not getting the commission. Let's make sure you're getting the right home, though. So they signed the contract. I don't know anything about the house, but they agreed on $170, and a week before they closed, the appraisal came back. Appraisal was $156,000. Turns out that the appraiser, and appraisals mostly in general, landscaping's not a huge value add that you're going to get a good return on. No one was arguing the fact that they spent $20,000, but did it increase the value of the home? And in this case, the bank's opinion or the appraiser's opinion of the value of the home because of that. And the answer is no.
Well, and don't get it confused either, because it might not increase the value of your home, but it might allow your home to sell quicker when it's compared to other homes that are on the market.
And that's exactly what it did. It had the nicest curb appeal of any house on the block. But the facts were, none of those houses on the block had ever sold for 170. The highest one was 156, and they were giving this house credit. It was the nicest house on the street. But you also can't go above and say, no house has ever sold for over 156 on this block, and we're going to say that this one's worth 170 because of the landscaping. Mm-hmm. New flooring is another good one. If you have brand new carpet, but you had carpet before, you haven't really increased the value. You've just made it nicer.
Comfortable for you to live in, too.
Right. If you went from carpet to hardwood floors or an expensive floor, you've actually altered it and changed the cosmetics of the actual home. Like going from Formica countertops to granite. There's a value add that, based on current perception or current market, that costs more to do from the original.
Well, and just a side note too, if you're thinking about doing upgrades to your house and you're curious what's going to increase your home value and what's going to keep it the same, contact somebody that you know that's a realtor that can help you with pulling out some of those comps and seeing what the added value would be. I'm getting attacked here.
I am off. It's not a bee.
That's actually a pretty...
You can contact...
Look.
Oh, it's a butterfly.
It is.
I saw a monarch this morning. You can contact a real estate agent, and we have a pretty good idea because we deal with it every day. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, for $400 or $500, you can hire an appraiser to come to your house, tell you what it's currently worth, and then tell them what you're thinking about doing, and they can give you an idea too. Mm-hmm. So what happened to these folks? Well, at the bottom of all of our contracts, it clearly states that in the event that the house didn't appraise, the contract's null and void. A lot of people think that the buyer will just come up with the difference in money and it's their responsibility. That's not the case. Even if someone's paying cash, like when we have cash buyers, we still recommend appraisals. We want to make sure that our buyers are not paying more than what the house is worth.
Right. We would never advise our clients to get into a negative equity situation.
Yeah. So the seller ended up having to lower the price because what they found out was, even if they went and sold it to someone else, people will ask, why did this sale fall through? And it'd be wrong to say anything other than the truth, and the truth of the matter was it didn't appraise for what we were selling it for. As real estate agents, we're obligated to say that a house didn't appraise. So most likely, if a house appraises for less than the sale price, the seller's going to lower the price, or the sale's going to fall through.
Well, or, if the buyer really wants it, they can cut out, if they've asked for closing costs, right, they can cut the closing costs. It can be a give and take as well. Or if they're asking for a lot of repairs to be done off of an inspection, saying, you know what, don't make those repairs, we'll accept it as is, as long as you will lower the price. Ultimately, the seller is technically lowering the price, but there are some things that the buyer can give up within that contract that can kind of help offset some of that. It doesn't always fall completely on the seller.
Number 2. Let's say that you do realize, I just bought this house, my job changed, I need to sell it, and I can't afford to pay a commission, so I'm going to sell it for what I paid for it and try to avoid the realtor fee. 2 more things that you need to know. Number 1, yes, I'm one that says I don't want to be the reason someone doesn't buy a house. On the flip side, I'm constantly looking at for sale by owners because I want to make sure that regardless of who's selling the house, I'm looking at all the houses on the market.
Yeah, we want to see everything on the market. That way we're servicing our buyers to the best of our ability.
If I find the home and I bring the buyer to it, you don't know whether I've been showing this buyer a house for a week or 6 months. And the fact of the matter is, I am a real estate agent, but I'm a dad, I'm a husband, and I drop things all the time to make sure that my clients can go look at the homes, and we don't get paid unless the house sells. Mm-hmm. So if you're selling your house and the person that wants to buy it has a real estate agent, they're going to expect to be paid
for the
a
job.
fee.
Because really, when we have a buyer for a home that is an unrepresented seller, we end up almost always doing double the work because we are handling both sides of the transaction. Even though the seller is unrepresented, most of the time the seller doesn't know what they're doing. And we want the process to be seamless for our client, so we want to make sure those processes are taken care of and not just, getting missed or anything like that.
There are turkey gobbling right now behind us, which is kind of cool. So, number 2.
Is that a turkey? That's not a turkey.
No, that's not. There was one gobbling behind us. Number 2. Let's say that they don't have a real estate agent. Let me tell you something that we found out about for sale by owners. 9 times out of 10, someone that comes in and knows that you're selling your house without an agent assumes that you're going to pass the savings from not having an agent involved to them immediately. I call this the Craigslist shopper. Most people, every time I ask this question, why do you shop on Craigslist? Because I want a deal.
They want a deal. Yeah, they're out there looking for the cheapest. They can find what they need.
So most people that are strategically shopping for sale by owners without agents, it's because they want a deal. And so they're going to assume that you're going to pass that right on to them. So what we found is that, like Kelly and I's list to sell ratio has been hovering around 99%, which means we
just went over it today. It's 99.2.
99.2 sale to list. So on average, we negotiate less than 1% of what we're asking for the house. What we have found is that on for sale by owners, a lot of times the house ends up selling for quite a bit less than what they were asking for them, because the buyer assumes that they're going to get those savings. So I ask people all the time, if the same amount of money is going to come to you at the end of the closing, why wouldn't you want representation? Because there's a lot of things that people don't know. Who's responsible for the termite? If I have a septic system, who's responsible?
I like to ask too, when it comes to a for sale by owner unrepresented seller, I like to ask, is it about what you pay me or is it about what you make, off the sale of the home? And a lot of times they don't care what they pay a real estate agent. They want to make a certain amount.
Yeah. So the reason I was on the phone today, we have another struggle. I have a friend that's buying a house, and it's a for sale by owner, and they are friends with each other. They both agreed that the house was worth X amount of dollars. But where did they come up with their facts? The fact of the matter is, this person, the buyer, has been looking for homes and missed out on some buys. This thing had some things that were really nice, but they didn't necessarily increase the appraised value of the home. So now we have people that know each other that agreed on a price, and the appraisal has come back significantly less than what they agreed on. And it made the situation a little bit awkward. What did you find?
Carissa said, and the seller sometimes tries to use the wrong deed of sale. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
I have too.
But what happened is, number one, the appraisal was ordered late, but they didn't know that the first thing they need to do is give their bank a copy of the contract. The things that they agreed on, they didn't know that you can agree on these things. Some people think, well, I need money for an allowance to put a fence in. You can't do that anymore. You can't give someone an allowance.
Yeah, banks don't like that.
You got to have an invoice, because they don't know whether you're really just giving them cash.
And then if they're not paying until after closing, they need to put that money in escrow, because if they don't, then something goes wrong, there's someone going to be liable to pay that bill. And if you don't have that money, the seller refuses to give you the money after closing for some reason, you guys get in a tiff or something, then that fence company that's already put that fence in at your new house can come and put a lien on your house until you pay that bill.
Give you an example. You guys both agree on the house at $150,000, but you want $5,000 from the seller to make some upgrades. That's going to be a no-no. You want a carpet allowance, you get an invoice from the carpet company, and the title, I think they think you're a flower. The title company holds on to that money until the work's performed. That's okay if it's agreed upon and the house appraises for enough. But the days of saying, I'm just going to give you $5,000, basically I'm going to let you finance a personal loan, you can't do that anymore. So now there's a moving truck in the driveway, they're loading things into the truck. A day before closing, the appraiser says, hey, the house didn't appraise. Could it have been avoided? Absolutely.
Yes.
Because what people don't understand is, it doesn't matter bedrooms. We sold a house for $700,000 this spring. We know that the seller had well over $1 million in it, and he was sick to his stomach. And the moral of the story was, you built $1 million house in an area where there was no $1 million homes.
Yeah.
What they've taught us is, if you live on a street and there's all $300,000 homes, and you build a $600,000 home, what you've probably done is built a really nice $300,000 home. So what it costs to build doesn't mean that the market will bear it. And in this instant, we all agree that the house is the nicest house in the neighborhood. But the fact is, there's no other houses that have sold for that. And so what the appraiser is going to say is, in the event this house goes default, there's no other homes, and the market has said, no house has ever sold for $150,000 over this place, so we're not going to appraise it for more than that. We would have known that in advance, because before we list someone's house, we come up with our prices based on the facts.
This is today is the third instance within 1 month that we've had that 3 for sale by owners have not appraised. And we've been on the buying side of each of those.
We also accredit that to the fact that the market's been so busy.
Yeah.
In a seller's market, a lot of times people think, I can sell my house for whatever I want.
Yeah, I'm going to push that line. I'm going to push that limit. I'm just going to see how much. I'm going to put it on the market for $100,000 over what it's really worth, just to see if I can get it. Well, unless you have a cash buyer, you're always going to have an appraisal. And even if I had a cash buyer, I would never advise them to spend over what it's actually worth on the current market.
The appraisers aren't the bad guys either, nor are the lenders. What they're trying to do is keep a balanced market.
Absolutely.
So we're in a seller's market, which all that means is there are more buyers than there are inventory.
Houses on the market.
Buyers go off of what they need. I need 3 bedrooms, I need 2 baths, I'd like an open floor plan.
In Washburn Roll.
Yep.
In Seaman. In 501.
But some of the amenities that come in as hard facts that make houses worth more and less, the average buyer or seller, they wouldn't know. I didn't know until I got into real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone can agree what a house is worth to them. But at the end of the day, if there's going to be a mortgage on it, it's what the bank sees as risk and what they're going to be able to recapture at the end of it.
Well, and I mean, you might think you're going to be there 5 years, but you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You might get a job transfer. You might have an unexpected kid to where you need another bedroom now, and you might have to sell that house within 2 years. And if you pay more than what the appraisal comes back at, you're basically just going to have to eat that. That's what we call negative equity, is when you owe more than what it's actually worth. And, you know, at the end of the day, you're going to eat it when you have to sell it to the next person, because even though you might have paid cash, the person buying your home most likely isn't. Those cash buyers are few and far between.
What we're really trying to say, and I think that if you ask majority of our sellers, I hope we have some sellers and buyers on here that'll back us up. We don't believe that with a real estate agent, you pay more or get less at the end of it. We are out there to make sure that you're not overpaying for a home. If we can get a deal, great. But 2 years down the road, if I call somebody and say, what's more important to you? Getting a deal or finding the right home? They're always going to say finding the right home down the road, unless they're trying to sell it that day.
Yeah.
So finding a deal right now in a seller's market, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's more important to find the right home. And then when you're selling the home, we want to get the max value, but at the end, we also want a sold sign in the yard. Asking too much for a home, having it not appraised, and the deal fall apart does nothing but damage, and you may have missed that peak of the season by that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to think that we don't usually cost them anymore, and at the end of the bottom line, the net that they pay would probably end up being close to the same whether they used an agent or not. And if you have a good agent that you trust, why wouldn't you use them?
Well, and another hurdle that we all have to jump over when you're selling a home is inspections. That's something we spend a ton of our time is going to inspect, well, first scheduling inspections, as inspectors are busy, so there's a lot of back and forth when you're looking at scheduling them, going to the inspections, and then negotiating and just trying to figure out what the buyer is willing to accept as repairs and what the seller is willing to do to repair those items. That's a lot of our time is spent doing that. And when you're uneducated about that process, it can be very overwhelming. You can get very defensive because you've owned this house for, let's say, 10 years. You've maintained it beautifully, but you didn't know about that leak in the master bath that's been going on for the entire 10 years that has completely rotted through your header and your steel I-beam. I've had that happen. Yep. Beautiful home, very well maintained, 1 drip a day for 10 years, rotted through both of those. And at first, the seller was very defensive because he felt like he had a beautiful home. And then once we finally were able to sit down and say, we understand that you didn't know that this was going on, we kind of took that emotion out of it and we started talking about the facts. And we did get it repaired. But that's definitely a huge hurdle that we have to jump over in every single situation, no matter if we're representing the seller or the buyer.
Speaking of which, on the for sale by owner, how many times we go to for sale by owners' houses all the time. A lot of our clients started out as for sale by owners. It does not cost you a dime to have an agent come through, walk through your home, and tell you what they would do. My pitch has always been the same. People always ask me, do you have a buyer for my house? If I have a buyer for your house, I'd be here with the buyer. I'm not going to call you and tell you I have this imaginary little buyer in my pocket that'll buy the house if you let me list your house. That doesn't make any sense. I'll come walk through your house. I'll give you ideas of how I would stage it, what I would price it for.
Well, wait a second.
Okay, let me take that back. How Kelly would stage it and how I would sell it.
Yes.
And people ask me, Joe, why do you do this? And I say, well, out of good faith. I give no one, I'm good with everyone trying to give it a college effort to sell your home on your own. But in the event you decide to hire an agent, I'd like to interview for the job. And let's say that you end up selling it on your own. This is a small town, and if the worst case you tell someone, you know what, this guy came through, gave me really good advice, I took his advice, he helped me sell it. The Robbins, we walked through their house, we actually held an open house for them because we were going to list the house the next day. She already had it scheduled, and they got a full cash offer. And they've been one of our best cheerleaders ever since, and we helped them sell it, but we actually didn't list it. They were successful in selling it on their own.
Well, and there's nothing to say, though, that I agree. If we had a buyer, we would be there at that moment with our buyer. But there's nothing to say that we might not pick up a buyer, in the future. And just knowing that we've already gone through your house, we've talked to you, we've, had a good feel for the layout and for the location and everything. If we have that buyer that comes up, we can say, we've already been through that house. We know the market. Let's go look.
If you're a for sale by owner and you get a phone call from an agent and they say, I just want to come see your house, there may not be anything more to it than they want to see the house. When a nice house comes on the market, a lot of agents in town go and walk through the home as an agent preview because they never know if the next day they're going to get a phone call. And to be able to say, I've already been through the house, it is really nice, and let's go through it, that's what keeps us on our toes and what the market's worth. So I don't want you to get the impression that agents are out there always just to list your house. Yeah, it's our job, but a lot of times we just want to know what houses are like. Maybe we sold one down the street, had a lot of people come through the open house, and now that you're having yours open, we want to come walk through it.
And I would say if you are completely set on doing a for sale by owner, my suggestion to you when it comes to inspections is have a pre-list inspection done. That's where you can contact a whole home inspector to come and inspect your house before you actually put it on the market. That way you are prepared with what they're going to find. Even though a buyer might say, I want someone else to come look at it, kind of gives you a heads up about what they're going to look at and what they're going to find.
One time this year, I think I sold the house 10 times before we made it to closing. Every time there's an inspection, it's a hurdle. And you've got to make sure that everyone's still engaged and still in agreement.
It can be a very highly emotional chapter in someone's life when they look at selling their house. Lots of emotions.
Right. And we don't have hours. I can't tell you how many agents I've been on the phone with at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And at the end of the day, we really do have our clients' best interest in making sure that they get the home that fits them the best, or we aren't the difference between them moving to their next chapter.
Well, and we just recently had a seller who they needed a new roof, and he was really upset about it, and he didn't really feel like, he should be paying for the entire thing. And when it came down to it, though, he wanted to give a new roof because he wanted the new buyers to have a good, solid home. And when he told us that he was going to put the new roof on no matter what, we were able to then see his motivation. Okay, he really is going to put a new roof on. Let's continue this contract and let's get it closed. Take those emotions out. We had to get those emotions out of his way for him to see clearly that the deal needed to close. We were only a week or two away from closing. He did not want to put it back on the market. That moment that the roof inspector was there, it was just a very highly emotional moment.
Yeah. Really, our moral of the story is, if you're going to try to for sale by owner, do homework, talk to an agent. It doesn't cost you anything. Let them walk through the house.
You have no obligation.
And, I can't tell you how many times we've gone on a listing appointment. These people are getting ready to list their house, and they say, well, I was going to talk to such and such and such and such. We don't bash any of the other agents because we know what we do for a living. And my hat's off to every real estate agent in Topeka because we don't have hours. And during the busy season, we don't see our family very much because none of us want to be the reason our clients don't get the home. And I can't tell you how many times I've sat down at the dinner table when the phone rang.
Oh, thanks, Melanie.
But do homework. Ask for referrals. Ask for references.
Hey, Zach.
And if I can ask for anything personally, if you've had an experience with a real estate agent, good or bad, tell us what we could do differently. Is there a pet peeve you have?
Hey, Jen.
Because we've had one client that we were just talking about with the real, he had a bad experience. And so when we talked to him, we made sure, and that's one of my favorite things to do is tell me how you want me to represent you. How do you want me to be your agent? How do you want me to communicate with you?
Something else that for sale by owners, just real quick, they don't consider when they think about doing a for sale by owner is the fact that they are now the ones completely responsible for showing their home. They don't know who's calling them. They don't know if they're pre-qualified. They don't know if they, should even be showing these people at 9 o'clock at night. It can get a little sketchy and a little bit dangerous. And when you do hire an agent, that gets completely taken off your hands. All agents have background checks in the state of Kansas. We don't show houses to clients that have not been pre-approved. And so you know that every buyer that we bring through your house is a legitimate buyer and not just wasting your time. I mean, I don't know what is worse than having kids and trying to clean my house and trying to get dinner done. We just had a client that we put their house on the market on Friday, and we had some last minute showings, and they had turkey in the oven, kids are running around. They were able to say, Joe, Kelly, we want to wait until tomorrow, and they didn't have to worry about doing any of that themselves. We were able to handle that for them.
Yep. I can tell you with experience, Kelly would agree with me. There's some amazing agents in this town. We love working with them. It makes I would love it if every single time, a lot of people think, oh, when you sell one and have the buyer at the same time, that must be the best thing. You're doing twice as much work, and you're also dealing with two people's emotions. Sometimes it's nice to have someone on that other side. I love working with another great agent in town.
I do too.
And there are so many that have so much expertise in different parts of the town. So,
Topeka's so big, you can't know everything about every area.
Yeah. Please leave us your comments, though. I'd like to know if you've had a good experience, what made it so good. If you've had a bad experience, what would you like to see different? Tell me about your successes or tell me about your hurdles so that we can continue to improve. And if I can give you any advice at all, if you're getting ready to list your house, contact an agent. It doesn't cost you anything.
No obligation. You don't have to ever sign anything. You just talk. And if they're a good agent, they're going to be willing to do that.
We have a fun this or that on Thursday, so I hope you guys tune in. It's going to be a good time. We'll probably be back in the office depending on the forecast. Again, we're at 9840 Southwest Frontage, $399, 46 acres, walkout, 3-bedroom, 3-bath. Let us know if you want more information. We're going to have it on our webpage this week. Thanks, Facebook.
Thanks, guys. See you on Thursday. Have a good day.